Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, Tokers and Tokettes. We are live here from Rolla J Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon. We just got off the air with John Pardee from the Ohio Rights Group, telling us a little bit more about what's going on in the Buckeye State. Some great information there. And we got a special live look in here for you. We're going to go back out to the state of Ohio, where there is a meeting going on. And let's see if they can see us out there in Ohio. We can hear what they're doing. Hello, Ohio. You're on the Russ Belville Show, Hour 2. Tell us a little bit about your meeting and what's going on today. I don't know if they can hear me out there. All right, we'll continue to see if we can get some audio coming in here from their meeting. It looks like it's a chapter meeting of one of the Ohio groups. I'm hoping someone can tell me more about it.
Can you hear us, Ross?
Now we can hear you. Go ahead. Hello, Desra?
Yes, Ezra.
Nice to see you guys.
Yes, hello. I am the president of Students for Sensible Drug Policy. So we do a lot of on-campus work, just hosting events like Know Your Rights events, so informing people of their rights. And a big thing that we were involved with last spring was the Ohio Rights Group campaign. And so tonight we hosted John Pardee to kind of get us involved in that movement again. So that's what we're doing here tonight.
All right, that's fantastic. We want to offer our thanks for you guys taking up the mantle of activism. Students for Sensible Drug Policy are some of my favorite folks. And in fact, we have a show dedicated to Students for Sensible Drug Policy. We run that. In fact, it's coming up right after this hour, the Activism Hour with SSDP. We've got some video from the 2014 awards ceremonies out there with their I guess it was their year-end awards for student activism. So congratulations, you guys. And our national and international audience is very proud of you and excited for your work helping out Ohio Rights Group and the further reforms in Ohio. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Ross.
All right, so nice live look in there with activism going on in Ohio. You can find out about your local Students for Sensible Drug Policy chapters at ssdp.org. Want to remind you about that. And if you've got a local group that's meeting during our regular hours here, we would be happy to do these live look-ins and give people a look at what activism looks like all across the country and all around the world. If we aren't on during your regular meeting times, go ahead and video your meeting. We would love to have a a short 3 to 5 minute clip, maybe a description of your group, what's going on. That's really what I founded 420 Radio for. I was working with Normal, and I thought there needed to be a media outlet for all of these independent Normal chapters and all these small nonprofit groups that don't have a ton of money or media expertise to be able to put this on for themselves. So I figured I'd provide a channel, and all you got to do is send me the audio or the video. We'll put it up for you. We'll get your information out there. If you've got a Normal chapter that has a YouTube page, or SSDP, or any group that has a YouTube channel, send me that information. We'll add it to our Activism Hour list at 5 o'clock every weekday. We have an episode of the Activism Hour, and we feature Normal chapters, I believe is Thursday's episodes. So if you are interested in getting more information out about your local activism to an international audience, just send it to me, russ@radicalruss.com, or you can send it through Gmail, radicalruss@gmail. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter @radicalruss. All right, we got a bunch of stories to talk about today. Also, Gordon Green and our 420 music break coming up. We're going to have some Irie Wednesday music. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the results of drug tests for welfare in Tennessee, making sure that those welfare bums aren't using their welfare money on no marijuana. Also, more on drug testing about false positives sending people to jail. We've got a look at the case taking final arguments today in federal court regarding the Schedule I status of marijuana and whether or not that is constitutional. And we've got a story on Girl Scout cookies, both the confection and the strain. That's coming up later on. And an update from Minnesota where they're just not sure if medical marijuana is any good for chronic pain. Stick around.
And now, a message from former President George W. Bush
to remind the American people of our responsibility in our nation's war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
That's right, America, use less drugs. Put down the Prozac, the Vioxx, and the Levitra, and turn to the herb. Use less drugs. Our national policy is no longer just say no, it's now just slow down.
You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly if I said some silly thing, and that's the reason why.
420 Radio. Tune in, turn on, get highly educated. This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay, read the Weed Blog today. Connect with 420radio.org through social media, on Twitter @420radio.org, and our Facebook page @420radio.org. Follow us and like us today.
Era un hombre de veras valiente, se burlaba de la policía, a su mando traía mucha gente, su negocio se lo requería, poderoso y también muy alegre, como el diablo se le conocía. Donde quiera sonaba su nombre y tronaba su cuerno de chivo. Cada ráfaga llevaba un nombre, no fallaba, era muy efectivo. Lo apreciaban mucho sus patrones y se diga su gente y amigos. El dinero, el poder y la fama Son tres cosas muy afrodisíacas. Sin buscar las mujeres te sobran. Solteritas, viudas y
Welcome back, everyone. That's some great narco corridos music. Narco corridos. That's Los Tucanes de Tijuana with El Diablo. That's right, the Tijuana Toucans and their song The Devil. It's amazing how our American war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs has inspired an entire musical genre in Mexico. Narco corridos, the ballads of the drug traffickers. Just amazing, isn't it? You know, it's hard for me to imagine an analog to that. I guess, you know, gangster rap, maybe? I don't know. You know, these musical tributes to death and killing and crime. Oh my gosh. All right, let's get to some of the marijuana stories out there that I wanted to talk about in hour two. And a reminder, our phone lines are open at 971-533-7111 if you've got a comment, question, suggestion, or rant of your own. Or you want to promote an event or activist group out there that needs a little bit of a shout out, just let us know. We've also got our chat room open at 420radio.org. Just click the green live chat button and log in with your Facebook account there. You can become a part of our chat room, which always has some very interesting people in it. Today, Big Daddy Fink is hanging out, as well as Green Groves high in Hawaii, our correspondent from the Big Island out there, John Thomas. We got Left Wing Larry in the Buckeye State, and many more. So make some new friends from all across the world in our chat room. And don't forget our 420 radio promo code at vapes.buzz. Vapes.buzz, the source for portable vaporizers now.com. 420 radio gets you 10% off. So I wanted to talk about, this came up in Think Progress, on Tennessee's drug testing for welfare. Now, you know, I hate this shit, right? It's this infantilization of the poor, this involuntary servitude that somehow because you're poor and you need government assistance, that gives us the right to micromanage your life. It's something I find very offensive. But here's what they found in the first 6 months of drug screenings for welfare recipients in the state of Tennessee. Out of the more than 16,000 applicants from the beginning of July through the end of 2014, just 37% tested positive for illegal drug. What? No, 3 point. Oh, I'm sorry. No, my bad. Sorry, misread that. Not 37%. 37. 37 total. Out of 16,000 people, 37 tested positive. That's 0.2% of all the people that applied for welfare ended up testing positive for illegal drugs. Woo! Now, 37 positive tests. We got to figure out how much money the state of Tennessee spent on all their tests, and then subtract how much money in welfare they wouldn't have gotten because they failed the test. And we're going to find that it's a money loser. Never mind the fact that it's, you know, rude and offensive and infantilization of the poor. Never mind all the constitutional questions involved. It's just not fiscally sound to be drug testing people for welfare. 0.2%. Now, let's be a little fair on this. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because in Tennessee, following up after Florida's drug testing for welfare was declared unconstitutional because they were testing everybody or randomly testing people, a judge found that, yeah, even though they're poor, they still have, you know, rights. And one of those is the Fourth Amendment, which says you can't do an unreasonable search and seizure. And, you know, taking someone's piss is kind of a seizure, isn't it? And that you have to have suspicion of you have to have an individualized suspicion of crime before you can do such a search, right? And so this drug testing everyone for welfare was found to be unconstitutional because you were just saying, hey, because you're poor, you must be committing a crime, so we have the right to search you. And a federal judge said, can't do that. So the states since then came up with a little loophole around that. They had to come up with a way to generate that individualized suspicion, beyond the fact that they're just poor people. And so what they do is they have these little questionnaires. You have to fill out a little questionnaire if you want to get welfare now. And the little questionnaire has all these questions that are determined to root out whether or not you might have a predilection towards drug use. Now, not as simple as something that says, question 1, do you currently use drugs? No, these are more things like, have you ever been arrested for drugs? Have you ever failed a drug test? Do you know what an 8-ball is? What's a common term for grass? Whatever, right? These are more of these, we're building a suspicion type questions that have nothing to do with proving anything. But out of the 16,000 people that took this little written quiz, there were 279 of them who couldn't figure out what was up and failed the little written quiz, or at least generated enough suspicion to be tested. So 16,000 people applied, 279 got tested. Of the 279, 37 tested positive. So that works out to 13% of the people that failed the questionnaire. I'm sure the drug warriors want to point to that as some sort of saving stat, but to me, it just further shows how bankrupt this ideology is. You mean to tell me, out of 16,000 people, you could only identify about 279 of them who had any predilection toward drug use? Well, let's just do a little back of the envelope calculation here. 279 divided by 16,000 works out to 0.017. That's 1.7%. So out of 16,000 people that applied for welfare, you only identified 1.7% of them as possibly being drug users. Now, folks, I kind of know the stats on drug use in this country, and it's greater than 1.7%. So right off the bat, your questionnaire is very suspect because it doesn't seem to be catching enough people to be considered anything close to accurate. And then when it does catch some people, 279 of them, and you test those 279 and only 13%, that is 37 of them out of 279 came up positive, 1 out of 8. So you got this quiz that only catches 1.7% of the people as possibly being drug users. And out of that 1.7%, it only reliably identified drug users 1 out of 8 times. And that's your basis for denying people a welfare assistance payment. A welfare assistance payment, by the way, that most of those people have paid into at some point in their life through paying payroll taxes, sales taxes, etc. I get tired of this attitude of the American people. You see it on the bumper stickers all the time. I have to work hard so I can earn your money for welfare, or whatever the sticker says. As if we're frozen in one point in time where all people who are on welfare have only always ever been on welfare and never had a job. And all the people who currently have jobs have never taken or will never take welfare in their lives. And neglecting to even pay attention to the vast, overwhelming majority of welfare that goes to CEOs, farms, big business. Let's not even consider that part. So Tennessee, you managed to come up with 0.2%. Well, here's some other states that have done this. Utah did $30,000. They spent $30,000 on tests, caught 12 drug users. That was 0.2%. Now compare that. In Tennessee, 8% of the overall population uses drugs. But their questionnaire only picked out 1.7% as possibly being drug users and only found 0.2% as actually being drug users.
blaspheme in here. Don't you blaspheme in here.
Florida, they only came up with 2%, and that's when they were testing everybody. Drug testing for welfare is not just offensive, it doesn't work. Happy 420, everyone. When we come back, we got some daily Toker tunes for you for your Irie Wednesday. Stick around.
.420 Radio, the world's voice of marijuana legalization. The International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's Legalization Campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's Legalization Campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside's Steve D'Angelo, ArcView Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, International CBC. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, welcome back. 23 and a half after the hour. And again, Gordon Green is out busy with work. He's gotten a new job that's kind of rearranged his schedule a bit, but I'm sure he'll be back soon enough, bringing us more new Daily Toker tunes. For today, I'm going to go back to the Irie Wednesday library from Gordon Green's Music Planet. Check it out at 8 p.m. Pacific time every Wednesday night, a full 1-hour episode of some of the best world music has to offer, hosted by the knowledgeable Gordon Green. Here's one of the tunes he played earlier last year for us from one of my favorite bands, Dengue Fever. This is Cement Slippers, the official video. Enjoy.
My girlfriend loves everything at the beach except the water, the sand, and the sun. Here comes the water.
My boyfriend loves everything about me except the endless hours of therapy.
Here comes the water.
Here comes the sun. And it wastes time.
crispy. The slipper fits me heavily.
Here comes the water. Here comes the sun. And it weighs the time on me. And it weighs the time on me. And it weighs the time on me. And it weighs the
You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
I like that.
Well, I don't know what you came to do, or what we came to
That's right, baby. We're keeping the funk alive right here at Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Ring, your groovy home of soul, funk, and disco. So join me, Big Daddy, every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific at the Funky Roller Ring, where every night is Saturday night.
Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
Welcome back. That's music from the Dub Funk Association with Hustler's Choice. Just checking out some of the messages coming in from social media all across the platforms where 420 Radio and the Russ Belville Show are found. Got a great comment on one of my Kevin Sabet videos. Kyle Kalowski says, "There are so many flaws with his logic and so many extraneous variables related to personal choice that I can't believe Kevin Sabet is able to sleep at night while he insists he is trying to protect the youth." Yeah, it is quite amazing, isn't it? Coming up this weekend, I'll be at the International Cannabis Business Conference Sunday and Monday in San Francisco, California at the Hyatt, right there in downtown San Francisco. I'm so excited because I'm actually flying out Saturday. Saturday is Valentine's Day. and I managed to pry my wife away from her work obligations as a leader in the healthcare industry to join me for Valentine's Day in San Francisco. Finally, all this traveling and moving around and being so constantly busy pays off in at least a little one-day vacation for the two of us. So really excited about that. Thank you, all of you who are supporters of 420 Radio and the Russ Belville Show, for your donations, for your VIP memberships, and for the sponsors out there that make it possible for me to do this travel and to bring this content to you. Couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to become a VIP, just join at 420radio.org/VIP. If you'd like to be an advertiser, find out at 420radio.org/advertise. And I'm telling you, folks, you want to become my booth sponsor. You want to be a booth sponsor for 420 Radio. I'm going to be at the rest of the U.S. Cannabis Cups. I'm going to be at the Northwest Cannabis Classics. I'm going to be potentially appearing at a gig in Chicago, gigs all over the country. As a booth sponsor, you'll get prime mention everywhere I go. We'll also hand out your flyers so you can get exposure all around the country and have your brand associated with serious independent marijuana journalism. Just give me a ring out at 420radio.org/advertise. Also, in terms of content, really good news. We just made a nice investment in some new equipment. A nice laptop for audio video processing, a nice Sony camera and tripod system. So this weekend at the ICBC, I'll be able to bring back for you some really pro looking video and audio from these events. Really looking forward to that. All right, let's get to another one of the stories in the news that I wanted to talk about today. And this... Last year, we reported on the Girl Scout where she went out in front of the dispensary to sell Girl Scout cookies. And, well, she's back this year, and now it's not generating nearly as many headlines as before. The controversy sort of died down. And apparently she's out in front of Green Cross, someone was telling me. I can't verify that from the story, but if it's Green Cross, that's even better. But... Daniel Lee, L-E-I, maybe it's Lay, but Danielle took advantage of the fact that marijuana stimulates appetite, and in 2 hours on Sunday, she sold 208 boxes of cookies, nearly 2 boxes a minute, bringing her total to 560 over a period of 4 days. Danielle said, "I would not have sold that many in 4 days if I did not sell in front of the store." Her goal is to sell 1,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. She plans to return to the same location this weekend to sell even more cookies. So, folks, buy yourself a box of Girl Scout cookies to go with your bowl of Girl Scout cookies. Oh, my goodness. That's just natural entrepreneurship from this young lady. Good for her. Glad she's pulling that off. Now, there was some concern last year when this story came out. There was the whole "what about the children" crowd going, "Oh my God, she's a young girl in front of a place where people are getting marijuana. Oh, the children's eyes. They'll know that such a thing as marijuana exists. They'll see adults buying it and paying taxes on it. And they'll think it's normal and acceptable." Yep. You got us. It's all part of our evil agenda. It's all part of our evil agenda to show people marijuana and the people who use it and to judge for themselves just how terribly dangerous and scary we are. It reminds me of the people that are against medical marijuana, right? And they'll make this argument about a slippery slope. They'll make this argument about the camel's nose under the tent. It goes like this, right? Well, if we legalize medical marijuana, that's just the camel's nose under the tent. The next thing you know, they'll be asking for legalization. Look at all the other states. Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Colorado, they all started with medical marijuana, and wouldn't you know it, they moved on to legalization. We don't want that legalization here, so we got to avoid that slippery slope of passing medical marijuana so it doesn't lead to legalization. You've heard this argument, right? You've heard people say that some variation on that before, right? It's an interesting line of thought that requires the suspension of belief in the way the world works somewhat, or at least a misunderstanding of how the world works. The first part that's problematic is they'll talk about they'll bring medical marijuana into the state, and the next thing you know, they will bring in legalization. Well, who's this they? Is this some shady cabal of pro-pot people who have the power to enact laws in a state? So the they that they're talking about would be a majority of the people, right? That's the only people that can be a they. At least we're talking about an initiative. If we're talking about a legislature, then the they is a majority in both houses of a legislature and a governor who will sign such legislation. The scaremongering tactic about the slippery slope of medical marijuana depends on you thinking there's a they out there that you have no control or power over that's going to do these things if you allow them to. When in fact, the they is us. The they is the people. So when they make this point about medical marijuana being the camel's nose under the tent, what they're really saying is we fear the people. Because think about the logical extension of this argument. We can't have medical marijuana because it's a slippery slope that leads to legalization. Well, the only way it can lead to legalization is if a majority of the people vote for it or a majority of the legislature supports it and a governor signs it. That's the only way it can go down that slippery slope. It's like we may have a slippery slope, but it's the people and their votes or their representatives that is the bobsled, right? Can't get down the slope without the bobsled. Okay, sloppy metaphor, but whatever. The point being that if the only way you can stop the people from wanting to vote for legalization is to not let them have medical marijuana, it tends to tell me that you fear the people having knowledge of marijuana. Because you know once they have knowledge of marijuana, they will support relaxing the laws on it. The logical extension of that is that you only maintain this prohibition on marijuana through misinformation about marijuana and demonization of its consumers. That's why you react so viscerally when you see something like a Girl Scout selling cookies in front of a dispensary in San Francisco. Because there is a direct conflict with your tactic of maintaining prohibition. Oh my God, there's a kid in front of a dispensary and nothing bad happened. In fact, something good happened. She sold a shitload of cookies and made some money for the Girl Scouts. Good things happened because of marijuana. And that just blows away the prohibitionist smokescreen. Guess that's kind of a pun. But it's revealing and it's exciting because it feels like there is a snowball effect happening where California rolled the little snowball down the hill and it started to get bigger and bigger, and in Colorado and Washington, and then Oregon and Alaska and DC. And it feels like we're going to be in a situation where every election cycle is going to be double the reform in the aggregate than the election cycle before. It's kind of an iteration of Moore's Law. Do you know Moore's Law? Moore's Law, M-O-O-R-E, has to do, it was one of the early pioneers of microprocessors. And he figured out that the processing speed of computers was doubling about every 18 months. About every 18 months, your computer would be twice as fast. Now, that law does run into some physical limits at which you're getting the transistors as small as you could possibly get to them, and that gets into geek land, and we don't need to worry about that. The conceptual idea here, the concept, is this idea of a exponential feeling to the progress. And that's what we're feeling here under legalization. It's almost like gay marriage, right? You look back to gay marriage as an issue, and the first couple of states that were taking it up, get back in the mid-2000s, you'd hear arguments about, oh, well, if we let gay people marry, then people will be able to marry their dog, and people will be able to marry, 3 women, and dogs and cats will live together. We'll have disasters of biblical proportions. Now you proffer some of those arguments and you're just considered silly or ignorant or hateful. We're almost at that point with medical marijuana. We're almost there in every place in the country where suggesting that cancer patients shouldn't have medical marijuana because, God forbid, that'll lead to a slippery slope where a teenager smokes a joint is considered to be ridiculous, alarmist, overblown. We're getting to that point with medical marijuana. It's going to be a while with recreational marijuana, but it's going to happen quicker than you think. I think by 2020, it's all over but a few holdouts. It's all over but the Intermountain West, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, and maybe the Central Plains, so Kansas, Nebraska, maybe. North Dakota, South Dakota. But I think generally speaking, it's pretty much game over by 2020. I think we've reached an inevitability already, and it's all downhill from here, but we're still at the top of the hill. We have yet to see the true speed of how fast reform is going to take over this country, and I'm just happy I get to be here telling you about it every day.
Jive, marry, grifo, grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420radio.org.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420.
The wood spider is the most accomplished of all web-building species. Recently, scientists gave these tiny creatures a variety of psychoactive drugs to observe their effects on web building. When given a minute dose of LSD, the spider's web took on an unfamiliar, minimalist structure. When given caffeine, the web structure was not affected, but the spider's behavior was. Given THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, the spider didn't build a web. It built a hammock, where it lay all day and watched the caffeine spider go. When given alcohol, the spider built a web, found a mate, and raised over 100 young. But the mate got a restraining order, and now the spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The crack cocaine spider figured building webs was for suckers, waited till the caffeine spider was exhausted, then came up behind it and popped a cap in its ass. Nice web, Mr. Crack Spider. When winter came, the marijuana spider had no place to live. It ended up in the crack web as the crack spider's bitch. For more information on the crack spider's bitch, contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa.
Welcome back, everyone. 47 and a half after the hour. And remember, you don't want to be the crack spider's bitch. Do what you can, folks. Don't just build a hammock. That's one of my favorite videos. Thanks for sending that in. If you've got other funny marijuana videos out there that you found on the internet, let me know. Send me a link at Radical Russ on Twitter or radicalruss@gmail.com if you want to get it in on the show. Always use fun stuff like that. There's some music from the Easy Star All Stars, their cover of Until That Day. I want to talk about another paradigm change in this war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. First paradigm change was medical marijuana, right? This idea that, hey, we can treat ourselves. Hey, nature can be medicine. Hey, we don't need the opinions of doctors and the pharmaceutical companies. We can treat ourselves. That was a major, major paradigm change. Also, it was a major paradigm change from marijuana users being nothing but dirty, disgusting, doper, loser hippies to being consumers of a plant for medicinal purposes. And that was enough to change us from users to consumers. And that continues as we move forward with legalization. But the other part that needs to be addressed in this paradigm are those people that do truly have addictions. Now, I come from a background of addiction. My father was an alcoholic and a speed addict. Went through detox, went through 12 steps, went through a drug and alcohol rehab program, went back to school, became a social worker, and became a drug and alcohol counselor at the place that got him sober. This was through my teenage years, so I had a lot of exposure to the theories of addiction. And one of the things I recall from those theories way back in the day, and my dad learning this in the mid-'80s, as the cutting edge of addiction research, was this idea that addiction is a disease. It's called the disease model of addiction. Some people have a predilection for addiction, was the idea behind this. And it in itself was a paradigm shift from addiction being a failure of willpower or a moral failing to being a more medical situation, being instead of being a moral judgment on your character, it was more a medical situation based on your condition. You had this condition of being an addict. You were prone to it. It's a disease. It rewires and hijacks your brain. Well, now we are starting to see a paradigm shift on this idea that addiction is somehow a disease. The crusader leading this paradigm shift is an author and British journalist named Johann Hari. His new book is called Chasing the Scream, The First and Last Days of the War on Drugs. And he was recently a guest this last Friday on Real Time with Bill Maher. He's also done a stint on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. And he's written a piece for Huffington Post entitled, "The Likely Cause of Addiction Has Been Discovered and It Is Not What You Think." And so Johann Hari is leading this crusade to redefine what addiction is all about. Now, Johann Hari started this investigation by trying to understand what causes heroin addiction? Now, the simplistic answer would be, heroin, right? Heroin causes heroin addiction. Makes sense, right? And as Hari puts it, we took it for granted that if there were 20 people and we all took heroin for 20 days, by day 21, since there's these chemical hooks in heroin, our bodies would physically need heroin and we'd be heroin addicts. The brain would be hijacked to want the heroin and we'd all be heroin addicts. And Johann Hari figured that this just couldn't be. And the way he explains it is that there are people right now all over the world who get into accidents. In a car wreck, let's say. Break your hip. So you get in a car wreck and break your hip, they take you to the hospital, and there's a very good chance at the hospital they're going to give you diamorphine. Diamorphine is heroin. In fact, it's better than heroin because it's medically pure. It's the best possible heroin you could get. Far better than what you get on the streets. And while your hip is broken, you're going to be given that diamorphine for a while you're in the hospital, quite a long period of time. But something odd happens, and that is all these people given diamorphine for broken hips or legs or injuries catastrophic don't turn into heroin junkies. If the heroin somehow rewires the brain and hijacks it to make you an addict, how come all these people getting diamorphine at the hospital don't lapse into addiction? Well, why this is happening and why we misunderstand what's going on with drugs can be traced back to an experiment that was done in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s for that matter. And the experiment, the man who's leading this understanding is named Bruce Alexander. He's a professor in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so they did these experiments in the early 20th century where you'd take a rat, you put a rat in a cage, and you give the rat 2 bottles of water. There's a regular old bottle of water over there. And then there's a bottle of water with heroin in it. And it's mixed with heroin or cocaine sometimes. And they'd find out that the rat is going to prefer, almost every time, is going to prefer the cocaine water or the heroin water and tap away at that and use that cocaine or heroin water until it dies. And so people said, well, see, there you go. You got a rat. You gave him a choice between drugs or not drugs. He picks drugs. He's an addict. He dies. That must be what addiction is. But then Bruce Alexander in the 70s came along and said, now, wait a minute. You're putting a rat in an empty cage. His choice is drink drugged water or be bored all day. He's got nothing for stimulation except drugged water. So Bruce Alexander created an experiment called Rat Park. And as Johann Hari explains to Democracy Now!, quote, Rat Park is like heaven for rats. They've got loads of cheese. Actually, I don't think it's cheese. It's some very nice food that rats like. Loads of colored balls, loads of friends. And they can have loads of sex. Anything a rat can want, it's got in Rat Park. And they've got both the water bottles. They've got the normal water and the drug water. But here's the fascinating thing. They obviously try both the water bottles. They don't know what's in them. They don't like the drugged water. The rats in Rat Park use very little of it. They never overdose, and they never use in a way that looks like addiction or compulsion. End quote. And so Bruce Alexander's theory on this was that addiction doesn't have a whole lot to do with your brain or the molecule you're putting into it, but more to do with adapting to a dysfunctional environment. He says the right-wing theory of addiction and the left-wing theory are both wrong. The right-wing theory is that whole willpower hedonist party thing, and then the left-wing theory is no, it's a disease thing, but they're both wrong. It's not your brain, it's not your morality, it's the cage you're trapped in. Addiction is an adaptation to your environment. Now, he points to a real-world example with humans. Vietnam. 20% of the American troops in Vietnam, 1 out of 5 Vietnam vets, were using heroin a lot. And everybody freaked out back in the day. This is when drug testing started in the military, was the fear that they were going to have all these heroin-addicted Vietnam vets returning home and being addicts on the streets and so forth. And what really happened is most of them who came back stopped using heroin. When you're no longer in the jungle facing gunfire and attacks and booby traps all the time, when you're back home in Kansas and you have your regular life and friends and family to look forward to, you don't have that need for heroin anymore. Now, that's not to say some vets didn't come back and end up addicted. That certainly happened. But that owes more, again, to their cage. The homelessness they faced, the post-traumatic stress disorder they faced and were left untreated. Again, it's the cage, not the drug. So what this tells us is that we have to understand a new way of thinking in dealing with drugs. And that it really doesn't have a lot to do, addiction doesn't have a lot to do with the person or the drug. And another confirmation of that would be the people who get addicted to behaviors that aren't drugs. Gambling, sex, shopping, hoarding, all sorts of behaviors. The way I'm starting to understand this research leads me to believe that addiction is just a symptom of human disconnection. Addiction is a hole in your soul that is usually filled with people and belonging. And it's that lack of belonging that leads to the addiction. Religious people might say it's a lack of spirituality that's involved here. That lack of connection to other human beings or to something greater. That's what addiction is. And so the way we treat addiction in this country is the absolute worst thing you could do for it. We separate people from other people and we restrict their possible outlets that would connect them greater to society, education, and employment opportunities. You want to treat addiction? Legalize all drugs, take the stigma and criminality away from it, provide real medical treatment for the people with true physical addictions, and work hard to improve the cage we all live in, improve that society, and you'll see less abuse of drugs. Folks, time flies when you legalize. That's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. We got great guests coming up tomorrow and the rest of the week. For everyone here at Roller J Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.